We begin today's wrestling news and rumors video with some very interesting news regarding Triple H's view on part-time superstars in WWE. Superstars that were heavily utilized when Vince McMahon was in charge to drum up interest and increase the ratings. As most of you are well aware, when Vince McMahon was in charge, part-timers and special appearance talent were always featured and showcased front and center in all of the top storylines on Monday Night Raw and Friday Night SmackDown, the likes of Goldberg, Brock Lesnar, The Undertaker, John Cena, among many others. And this was done mainly because the shows were in need of a big ratings boost, and McMahon felt like these part-timers were way bigger draws than pretty much any superstar on the active full-time roster. However, clearly Triple H does not feel the same way about part-timers. Now, according to Ric Flair on his podcast, he believes Triple H does not care for the part-time superstars anywhere near as much as Vince McMahon did, and that Hunter would likely want to have more active superstars involved in the big title pictures moving forward, over legends like Brock Lesnar and Goldberg. Here's exactly what Ric Flair had to say on his podcast recently. Quote, he, Triple H, looks at the big picture totally different than other people do, than other people have. I don't think he's crazy about the part-time performers. That would be my take on it. As he knows, he worked every day until he got more involved in the office, especially in a title role. The title picture, this is just me taking a guess. I think he's going to work towards having people who are champions working more dates. Now, by all means, most wrestling fans will likely feel this is a great thing that Triple H could essentially be moving on from the recent trend of part-time legends hogging up the top storylines and title scenes, as there are plenty of full-time talent on the active roster who deserve that spotlight instead, who are actually going to be around for a prolonged period of time, unlike Goldberg, Brock Lesnar, and other part-timers. Now, Triple H has been making the headlines recently for bringing back the likes of Dexter Lumis, Karrion Kross, Hit Row, and now most recently Johnny Gargano, among many others. But like we mentioned before, this isn't likely the last released superstar that WWE will be bringing back in the near future. According to Andrew Zarian on the We're Live Pal podcast, Jonah, formerly known as Bronson Reed, could be on his way back to WWE in the near future, or at least there is interest from the company for him to come back. Here's what Andrew had to say regarding Bronson Reed's possible comeback to WWE soon. Quote, I've heard one name over the last few weeks and that's Jonah. Great G1 climax. I talked to a friend over there casually in Connecticut. He's a name. Bronson Reed got the short end of the stick with his positioning. He's very good, he has the size. He had this awesome entrance with the background. I don't know if anything behind the scenes that happened, anything beyond that, but I can tell you that there are people very interested in him because of his talent, his performance in the G1. He's a name that people are interested in. I don't know what his deal is, but he has come up as a name that I've heard. Now, Jonah or Bronson Reed was one of the releases from WWE last summer, and his release at the time came as a pretty big shock for most wrestling fans, and there's no doubt that lots would be happy to see Bronson Reed back in WWE, as he was doing some great work in the company in NXT up until his sudden release last year, and his return could be happening pretty soon according to these new reports. Now, following this past week's episode of Monday Night Raw in Toronto, the Rated R superstar Edge addressed the fans in attendance following his big win over Damian Priest in the main event of the show, and unfortunately it appears as though the rumors are true that Edge is soon planning his retirement from WWE. Here's what Edge stated to the fans, which basically alluded to his retirement from WWE next year in 2023. Quote, I'm looking at the calendar, and we usually come here in August. So next August, I plan on seeing each and every one of you, and in a perfect world, we all say goodbye to each other that night. Now, if Edge does continue with WWE until next August, when the company returns to Toronto, this means that we thankfully will likely be getting another big match from Edge on the grandest stage of them all, WrestleMania 39 next year, which is definitely great news. Because while his official send-off may be in front of his hometown crowd next summer in Toronto, there's no doubt that Edge deserves one last big WrestleMania match. And if this is true, it appears as though WWE may have extended Edge's 3-year contract with the company, which would have seemingly been expiring around January 2023. So it looks like we will be having another year or so of Edge being a WWE superstar, which is awesome for sure. Some fans have been wondering exactly where Lacey Evans has been recently, as she's not been seen over the past several weeks on Friday Night SmackDown, with there not being a whole lot of information on the reason behind Lacey's absence. However, we do have some new reports on Lacey's status, and according to Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful, Lacey Evans is currently medically sidelined at the moment, likely meaning that Lacey is dealing with some kind of an injury, thus keeping her off of WWE television lately, but it is probably not anything too serious. Hopefully Lacey Evans can return sooner rather than later, although it doesn't seem like there really are any big plans for her at the moment, at least we don't know of any at this point. Apparently, Lacey Evans was one of Vince McMahon's personal favorites, but that didn't seem exactly true with how lackluster her return to the company was earlier this year. And we'll just have to wait and see how Lacey Evans fares in WWE now that Triple H has taken over creative from Vince McMahon. Now, there has been quite a bit of speculation recently that CM Punk was essentially unhappy in AEW All Elite Wrestling. However, CM Punk himself has basically put an end to those rumors, and no, CM Punk is not going to be leaving AEW anytime soon. Here's what the Cult of Personality had to say in a recent interview with Sports Illustrated. Quote, "You try not to put too much stock in internet rumors, but for AEW, I definitely think that's part of our audience. Twitter's not real life though. On top of that, a lie makes its way around the world twice before the truth puts his boots on or gets out of bed. If I addressed every rumor, I'd be here all day. I love AEW. It's not a competition of who loves it more or who's the heart and soul, or who's this and who's that. AEW allowed me a second chance to do what I do best, and that's professionally wrestle. It's one side of the story. My locker room is never closed, it's always open. Anybody who wants to DM Meltzer some BS can come talk to me about it. It's not macho BS. I'm an adult. Come talk with me." Now, by the sounds of it, the Cult of Personality CM Punk is more than happy in AEW, so those rumors of him being unhappy or possibly trying to leave the company aren't true. Could Chris Jericho be on his way back to WWE soon? Well, Chris Jericho recently teased that, because if you hadn't known, a fan had basically mentioned to Chris on social media that they want to see a faction consisting of Chris Jericho, Kevin Owens, and Sami Zayn in WWE, and Chris Jericho responded with this tweet, quote, well, some higher-ups want that to happen sooner than later, #tampering. Now perhaps Chris Jericho is simply playing fans with this tweet, but with Triple H now in charge of creative, we really cannot rule out the possibility of Chris Jericho leaving AEW and finally making that big WWE return.